is Hassan Shahade. I'm 22 years old from Jebaa in southern Lebanon. I studied graphic design and graduated in 2010, and now I'm completing my master's degree in this major. Before I began studying, I used to work in this domain in things that relate to media arts, like editing, like video graphics, and these issues. I started to develop myself step by step in this domain. At the beginning, the story started with a pen and paper. When I discovered that I am very good in drawing and I like calligraphy and these details, I was studying journalism at first at the Faculty of Information and Documentation, but I didn't like this domain, and my friends said that I should change my major and move to the domain of graphic that was still in its beginning. And actually, when I started work, I moved to a private school and completed this major, and alhamdulillah, I was comfortable and very good in it. And another thing was photography. I liked the camera since I was young. In 2006, and exactly after the war, I borrowed the camera and took some photos of the destruction and such details. I started to like this domain and develop myself without anyone teaching me. I was able to develop myself by myself, and I'm currently completing my master's degree in editing, photography, and video graphics. In this domain, which is graphics, it was historically expressed by drawing on walls. They used to draw in order to transmit an idea to others or to write down their history. It's kind of like blogging, or however, with the development of technology, visual communication became a very basic thing. I mean, with this rapid life, it's not useful anymore to tell a person about our ideas with a word or pen. We need to develop visual communication. Since I was a kid, things attracted me a lot. I was fond of reading signboards and advertisements and commercials, or observing certain messages that are being transmitted. And I found that one of these ways that I can use to express myself at first is drawing and calligraphy in order to transmit my message, and traditional drawing, and that was because graphic design doesn't depend only on picture but also the text written in this picture. So it was a fruitful domain, and when I was still studying journalism, I used to design the university's occasions, like mixing colors, putting backgrounds, wallpapers, and such stuff. But despite I was still an amateur, I realized that it was a beautiful reaction and also an influence when I used to present these things inside the university. This all pushed me more to dive into this major as a scientific study, and not only practical. I liked these things a lot, especially its theoretical part, not only the practical part. And I mean by this understanding how the people observe or understand how we can affect people through colors, through words, calligraphy, or distribution of images in a scene, and other details. The most important thing for a person working in this domain is to know the audience, as well as knowing the message. It's necessary regardless of the subject that I want to talk about. If I want to speak about a sports event, I should have enough information and enough knowledge to transmit the message. This is at first. There is also knowing the audience. I mean, to which audience my message is going to, their background, and how they see visually. And how can I start depending on what they see, and giving them extra courses in visual communication. But surely it's better to develop, and this is a primary issue. About photography, in the 10th of Muharram, it all started in 2009. It was my first time, and I began to develop gradually in a way of capturing, in photography. There wasn't much photographers in 2009. It was a small group, so the main thing we were like documenting the event. I mean, we were taking pictures from perspective of journalists who only cared about taking 2 or 3 pictures. Well, there was quite a lot of them. However, we were trying to take more details in facial expressions, attending the crowd, the ascending to Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. These were the details that we focused on in 2000. In the next year, in 2010, the way of thinking was developed. So I moved to consider photography as the composition of the scene, more than it's just transmitting a photo. So I started to focus on little matters, the number of people in the picture, the place of the person in respect to its background, the area surrounding him. So I moved towards arts and message. In 2011, 2012, because I worked and made videos in the marches of Ashura, the photography started to be different, especially in 2012, trying to do something more original. In 2012, we worked in the field of color temperature inside a certain picture. Tried to go to cool colors because of the people on Ashura were always by hot colors. I mean, the color that resembles the heat. I tried to show a certain contrast between the warmth and the feelings and the coolness of color. And also the way I used to transmit this. I focused on the faces, on the messages carried, and the bandanas worn by people on their foreheads. The time I focused a lot on female side, like the mothers who were carrying their children, the young girls who joined the scout and were coming with full enthusiasm and were preparing since morning in order to participate sympathetically in this occasion. I focused on how they used to be ready and disciplined and simultaneously interacting with the events of the happening. Discipline was a very basic thing to me. This discipline gives the picture a sense of beautifulness, especially the pictures which include more than a person, so we see the same distance between person, the same distance between the hands which carried the flags, and these flags were arranged. I like to make people see these, then the degree of discipline, not only the focusing on the tear, the crying, and emotions that are supposed to be ordinary issues. And they shouldn't take a big concentration of imagery in Kerбela. And we should also see the effect of Kerбela on people's arrangement, communication, and cooperation. Those are the things that I focused on. In 2012, besides Ashura ceremonies, I decided to go to Kerбela, to Imam Hussein's shrine. And also, my goal was to show a dimension that was different from what we used to see. I mean, the emotions, the tears, the things that we call rituals. I searched for distinction in some places. I searched on diversity in different places of individuals. The West always tries to show that we are chaotic, and that our only concerns are making crying, buffering, and but no. I try to search for the arrangement, for the discipline as a basic thing in Kerбela and the ceremonies here in Lebanon. The sense of cooperation between people, the search for the feeling of eagerness and enthusiasm in acceding Imam Hussein's call, not only through crying or verbal expressions, but also through real actions. I mean, a lot of people may express their love towards Hussein by listening to condolences all day, all night, and by crying. But once to practicing and real work, you enter the life to find that they are very far from this majestic person. I try to search for these details, but in cooperate with them, the discipline, the way they apply these directions and instructions, the way they care for these most tiny details in order to appear in the best and most honorable image that really affects Imam Hussein without any impurities. In talking about the issue of confrontation, we should mention that despite of all dangers of enemies and all the different kinds of threats that you see, people coming with all firmness and strength to confront any danger, not only to participate in the ceremonies, and that because they got used to do this. And you notice that the number of visitors is increasing every year. Every year we feel that we are ready to face dangers without any fear. All this is a reflection of Kerbala's battle, which was not just an ordinary battle between Omar bin Saad and Imam Hussein. Omar bin Saad had an army of thousands facing a small number of people. So why did he face them with all that army? He knew that he will overcome them at a military level. But why Imam Hussein's humble army had the ability of determination, confrontation, and refusal of surrendering? So all of this should be reflected in our ceremonies, our life, our details, our message that we try always to transmit. That battle wasn't a battle between two opponents, it was bigger than that. It was between good and evil, it was between right and wrong, between humanism and non-humanism. So we try as much as we can to transmit all this through our pictures. Actually, visiting Imam Hussein's shrine in Kerbala for any person who knows Imam Hussein, even if he isn't a Muslim. I mean, whenever any person gets to know that incident and that character, he will be so eager to know more and so eager to go there. So what can you say about us? This issue is always present. Imam Hussein's name is always present in all detail. When we drink water, we want to deal with anybody. He is present in all our details and even our emotions. So Kerbala's visit always gives a sensation of yearning to something that we always wait for. And subhanAllah, at that time I was so surprised because my luck was due to Allah's reconciliation. The visit was only 5 days and not more, but I was going to capture images. All this together brought me a different sensation. Throughout the journey and even inside the airplane, I was imagining all the time how the sensation will be that I'm going to the place where Imam Hussein martyred. I was imagining that scene. It was the place that witnessed the battle, the place where Imam al-Hussein's mate martyred, and the place where the battle which changed the history occurred. So when I arrived, I was so hasty to reach the shrine. It is not an ordinary feeling to a person standing in that place and feeling the moment, especially for people who have visual imagination. Those previews in their imagination, like how they heard it, it's not only a moment of meeting, weeping or longing, but also it feels certain confusion. I mean, a person starts to imagine that he was present in the battle, to imagine whether he would stand in front of the swords and death, or he would run away. and the presence of any person in the shrine brings him to a state of wondering till he starts to say the word, I was able to reach this place now, but if I was in the real battle, what would I do? Would I run? Would I stay? I came now comfortably and the situation is somehow secure. I reached the shrine, I greeted the Imam, prayed and did many things, but if the Imam is now here and called upon us, we will be afraid. I used to think a lot about these issues and made me worried. The exam is really there. The real and actual exam is not to reach the shrine to pray and supplicate, but it is in the battle when the swords appear, when death becomes the vanquished. Here is the real matter. We think about the colors that Ashura represent, and over there it was represented in red color, which is the color of blood, and black color, which stands for grief, and greed is Islam's flag, and all these details. So my thinking is like this way. On the other hand, I think about calligraphy. This subject is detailed, and in my personal life, I'm making my graduation's project about Arabic calligraphy. Its influence, how it carried and still carrying the real message, because after the descent of the Holy Quran, it became sacred and presented Islam in a basic way. So it is very important to deal with it as a sacred thing which we shouldn't deform, and to try to give it its real value. So based on this, I cared a lot about the issue and transmit my message to it by depending on several issues. For example, if you notice about the subject of terrorism, I'm a Muslim, I'm against it, that I worked on drawn calligraphy and not written. I mean, it looks like the full things that enthusiasms people, like the graphics on the streets. However, in an issue like Ashura, we look for the calligraphy that represents it. It should be distinctive in its construction and has a great value. About the drawing technique, it should also express the message. The word Hussein that you saw, which is written with red pen, was done to an exhibition in the Lebanese University about Ashura. The exhibition was so impressive, even to people who are from another religion or another culture. They were so impressed, and I noticed this thing. There was a very strange interaction. An interaction that happened encouraged me to write this expression, because the name Hussein was my theme in all the scenes that those people saw. The way of writing depends on what the person wants to transmit, and usually when we connect the letters, we are giving by this the normal value of a certain name, and when we separate them, we are transmitting two messages simultaneously. Either we give a single value for each letter, or we also give the part or the whole a value when there is an adherence despite the letters disjoining. Another message is when they say about Imam Hussein that his parts were chipped, because not only they separated his head from his body, but also his body was stomped by horses and harmed. I feel that disjoining letters express such issues. A person may ask himself why the letters are disjoined, why each letter is alone. This gives a kind of philosophy that looks like what happened in Kerbala. The idea of correlation between the picture and the text is a point that I focus a lot on even while teaching photography. Photography isn't about holding a camera or capturing a certain snapshot that I may like, but also there are stages to do so. It depends on how the photographer thinks and how he sees issues. Despite that, pictures are taken by parts of a technique, but these things which are knowledge, vision, velocity in capturing the scene that he is searching for, and his ability in expressing the scene before capturing it. If all these are found in the character of the photography, he will succeed because they are basic and very important. It's not enough to take a picture only, especially now that there are presence of social media and rapid spread of scenes, which leads to a certain misunderstanding of imagery and scenes that we show in certain places. The reason is because people will receive the idea in different ways. And people would ask why this scene is like this and not that, why this color and not, and so on. So I always focus on the idea that the photographer who wants to transmit his message should necessarily include this message in his photo and write it under the photo or even in it. Because I may take a photo that holds more than one meaning or interpretation, and each person sees it in a certain way. However, when I include a text, I'll be trying like this to make the recipient understand what that I was thinking of when I took this photo, to transmit my message through this photo, to look further than the face, than the tear, than the whole composition of the scene. For example, I'm not saying that here this is Imam Hussein's shrine. I mean, this is the place where the battle took place. I may clarify this by an expression, by a long sentence, by a text, by a single word. I mean, when I want to talk about longing, for example, it's different when I put the word labbaik. Labbaik is an answering for Imam Hussein's call. Longing is yearning to go back to the real place. I mean, the meaning is very different. The choice of calligraphy is a basic thing because there is a difference between the thin font, the bold font, which resembles the message, or the calligraphy that includes, may express a humor. All these details should be taken into consideration by the photographer. He should also give a space if he wants to write in the picture. I mean, there should be taken a small space in order to place a text. Back to Kerbala and Ashura, I always try to search for expressions that resemble us and not for those random expressions which are heavy on ears and need researchers to be understood. I look for the conclusion about Ashura's lessons. I try to transform my expressions to a visual scene in order to attract the readers. And even if calligraphy is not readable sometimes, however, a single word in the whole sentence may attract the people and try to understand the expression. From this basis, I follow this method. Also, since a long time I feel that I'm attracted to teaching calligraphy, even before I entered this domain. I feel the person that teaches is a person that gives from himself and his own time, and he's very generous, and sometimes he abandons things that people are supposed to maintain usually. The information nowadays is like money for some people. I mean, there are some people maintain it and hide it. There's certain selfishness if a person keeps an information for himself. And there's another issue that the focus of Prophet Muhammad and other messengers about the issue of knowledge and teaching and their rights and the student rights as well. I remember once when I was in a meeting with a certain scholar, and he was telling us about a confrontation he had one of the Zionists when he was under arrest. So they started asking about religious things and trying to embarrass him. He felt a kind of weakness or a lack of information. But then he remembered a speech for our Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, when he said to his students, "Whoever acts according to what he knows, Allah will make him inherit knowledge that he did not know." Thus he started to enter the debate according to the things he knew. SubhanAllah, the knowledge began to come to his mind, and if Allah was inspiring him about the things that he should say, this speech is very important to him. So if I want to gain more knowledge, I need to give people this knowledge and touch this fact when I start teaching. I was so enthusiastic, but it was difficult at first. They require high certificates, and they don't trust easily a person who is just at the beginning of his journey in teaching. I started teaching in a very simple way through chatting with people on internet sometimes. Like when someone asked me a question about the method I used to capture my photo, I started to explain to him. I gave him some websites that he may benefit from. Thank God I found positive effect. I mean, when I see this person who asked me has improved, I feel that there's something good for me, and even I get rewarded for it. I don't care if he mentions me or not. I'm the one who helped him, and even if he doesn't mention my name, but all I care about is that I was able to give someone something beneficial. I feel that this kind of generosity and also is the same as granting money to people. When I entered this domain of teaching, exactly, there was a kind of challenge for me. I had to challenge myself to be at the specific time, and I have to prepare very well and organize, and facing a group of people I don't know, since I was a bit shy. I challenged myself in sitting in front of the students who were at a certain age, a bit younger. That was who was so clever, and that was who was naughty. There's a big responsibility in this matter, especially to control the classroom and how to deal with these people. How should I deal with these people, whether if I'm more knowledgeable or not? These things are listed in letter of rights for Imam Zain al-Abidin. The rights of the students is to treat him like a brother and not in a superior way. His right is to listen to him when he has something to say, and so on. So I used to treat my students like this. The moment I entered the classroom, to them I said, I'm coming to cooperate with you and not to be a teacher. And actually I found a very positive harmony in this matter. They treated me as their friend and not their teacher, and everything was beneficial and fruitful. I used to be so glad when I saw the outcome. Back to Ahl Bayt's issue, we have certain lacks in certain areas, especially in domains of media, social media, and media arts. We have big lacks in certain parts. Others are always confronting us according to the negative dimensions that we're observing our Islamic society. There is a kind of negative imagery that people are seeing. There is also relating the terrorism to Islam, but Muslims are starting from our Prophet. We have a global school in manners, teaching, purification, knowledge, and so many other matters. The Islamic school is included in all domains of life, and the present life, the afterlife, economy, sociology, society, and nurturing. Our problem is that we are focusing so much on the aspects and superficial matters. We are taking tiny details of the school of Ahlul Bayt. These details are related to wind only and not the real essence, despite the fact that we have what is called the source of knowledge, education, and manners that will never fade. It's a school of morals, it's a social school, educational, scientific as well. Sometimes we swagger and show off that the West discovered something that already mentioned in the Quran since 1,400 years. This thing really bothers me, that we own the Quran and we have this Quran since 1,400 years and we couldn't discover anything that the West is discovering right now. So we feel proud that's something that we contribute in discovering to you. Where is our role here? We should be the exposed. We should carry this message to let people come to our side, because we are those who can help them in developing. We are those who have knowledge, we have information, knowledge, manners, the right behavior. We are not barbarians, we are not takfiris, and those who love to die aimlessly. But in the contrary, we have a way of acting in this life. We have also a school that we required through the experiences of Ahlul Bayt and the Imams, peace be upon them, in order to choose death as a result and not a goal. My goal is not only to be a martyr or to die, but this death is part of my message. When evil isn't able to bear the good anymore, it will be obliged to abolish it. We are so far away from Ahlul Bayt that we are contributing and being unjust to them in certain places. I mean, when we care about one side forgetting the other, when we focus on certain seerah for a certain imam neglecting the others, we have a lot of responsibility in this issue. And also for the issue of Sayyidah Zahra, we focus on a certain place, we hide the other. We don't search for Sayyidah Zahra, the mother, the girl who was in a young age but at the same time an ideal. We don't search for a Sayyidah Zahra, the teacher who taught a lot of girls and women in her time, I mean during that era. Sayyidah Zahra is the mother who nurtured her children sincerely. She is the wife who always supported her husband and treated him ethically. And Imam Ali, as a human being, treated person, the poor, the students, the friends, and even his enemies according to the school of manners of Ahlul Bayt. They taught us how to deal with the enemy to an extent that they might be merciful towards their enemy and may forgive him. So where are all these? Where are their existence in our daily life? Where are the application and the details of our dealing with people, with parents and with friends? The motto is not enough alone. It's not enough to say that we are supporting Ahlul Bayt, and it's not enough for a person to hold these mottos, to put a bond on his forehead or pictures or names after them. A person should be doing wrong with his parents, with his friends, with his society, or even with his own self in issues of worship. Trying to get out of that Islam, which is only a motto, and move to the Islam is really applied and practical, and it's hard working. It's a difficult task, but needs a lot of research and effort. I feel it's my responsibility to work in this matter to achieve, although it may take time. But I believe I'm able to be a researcher or a person who puts ideas, or a person who is able to establish projects in this domain, in which there is a lot of people who care about applying on a technical level. Why shouldn't I be that researcher or person who helps those people transmit the message, and not that person who only transmits?